All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining today. My name is Miles Green. I am the team lead for IT Audiovisual Services here at the lab. And I work with a small but mighty team, Luis Corrales and Darren Chavarria, who is behind the scenes doing my technical direction. We know it's a Monday and we want to respect your time. So we're going to keep this to about 20 minutes with 10 minutes or so of Q&A and hopefully break a little bit early. So it will not take the full hour. The IT Audiovisual Services team here at the lab, our goal is to bridge the gap between in-person, on-site, and remote participants that might join meetings, via Zoom or other platforms. It's a environment that we're going to be in. That's not going to change anytime soon. And so our goal was just to make sure that that transition was as seamless as possible and to continue to provide tools and tips and tricks and education so that lab staff can be successful during hybrid events. Before we get started, though, I want to launch a poll. I want to ask everybody, what is your idea of a hybrid conference room? Just to give us an idea of where you are. There's the poll. You should see it come up on your screen. Go ahead and enter your vote. We'll take a couple minutes to see if people are voting here. So the options are a conference room that has the word hybrid written on it on the wall, a conference room with a computer running the Zoom client, a conference room upgraded with technology such as in-room mics, speakers, AI-based cameras, and wireless screen sharing. And finally, a conference room full of books about hybrid events. Okay, we're going to end the poll. We got 53 out of 61 votes. Thank you for your participation. And here's the results. A hybrid conference room is a conference room that's been upgraded with technology such as in-room microphones, speakers, AI-based cameras, and wireless screen sharing. Okay, stop the share. And that's the end of that. So the way that we bring people together so that they can be successful in the hybrid environment is through Zoom rooms. We built a standard across public conference rooms at the lab with new technologies, which is scalable from everything from a small huddle room to our large auditorium has the same technology and the same user interface. With wireless screen sharing, so we eliminated all the cables and dongles and anything like that, and digital whiteboards so you can mark up shared content. This was done to all of the public conference rooms at the lab, and we also built information pages and your ability to reserve them in Google Calendar, which we'll cover in a bit. So just talk about the journey of where we've been over the past 5 years. When I started in 2019, there were 13 Zoom rooms. 2020, we made it to 53. Around 21 and 22 was the major expansion. We made it to about 152, and now we're up to 200 Zoom rooms at the lab. So it's quite a big network of rooms that Darren, I, and Luis manage to make sure that you can connect with your coworkers, with your team, with your collaborators, with DOE, whatever the case might be. That transition involved a lot of transformations from some very interesting conference rooms with a lot of cables and different tech, which we sought to clean up and improve the experience and just make a standard that every room that you go into, you find the same experience instead of, having to get there and figure out and move things around or unplug anything or even plug in your computer, as it were. So things have been standardized. No more ceiling projectors with the cable hanging down. And then in some cases, after the major expansion, we went in room by room and even added second screens or second cameras, digital whiteboards where they didn't exist. So we're constantly working on upgrading our tech. So that's the introduction. Getting right into the course. There's 4 modules designed to help you successfully plan, schedule, and manage a hybrid event using Zoom Room technology. In the first module, you're planning and scheduling, understanding what type of event you want to host, researching and finding the right room, scheduling a practice session so you can get prepared, and considering your logistics. In Module 2, you want to prepare, understand the Zoom Room best practices, create a run of show and assign roles to your team, manage your presentation content deadlines, and make sure you're familiar with the Zoom Room and the Zoom Workplace host tools, which we'll get into a little bit later. In Module 3, it's the day of the event. You want to show up early with your team, do one last tech check, review your timing and all of your assigned roles in your run of show document, test all your in-meeting advanced options for anything you want to do, sharing a video, using timers, if you need to spotlight, if you have multiple presenters, anything that you're concerned about, stopping people's video or audio or restricting chat, anything like that, you want to double check. And finally, the event support that you might require, which we'll also go into a little bit later. In Module 4, you did it. It's over. Everything went successfully, and you want to go ahead and gather your post-event data. In the planning phase, you're going to define your success metrics. And so after the event, you're going to go back and say, did we meet those metrics? How do we quantify whether or not our event was successful? Identify challenges that you had and discuss areas for improvement so you can get better as time goes on. Module 1, really important. You want to have a hybrid event. What type of event are you going to have? In order to determine that, you want to ask yourself several key questions. Starting with, what are the goals and objectives? Who is the target audience and what are their needs? What is the best space for the event? And this is really important because we pointed out there are 200 Zoom rooms at the lab. Some of them are made for large audience, others are small huddle rooms. It's very important to pick the right space for your event. So you're not picking an auditorium as big as pictured here for 5 or 10 people and the room feels empty. How is the content delivered, both to in-person and remote participants? And what technology will you need to support the hybrid format? After that, logistics. Does lunch need to be ordered? Do people need flights, hotels, lab shuttles, parking? That's a big one. And then, as we said before, how is the overall success of the event being measured? And how are you going about evaluating the impact? So the first step is to find the right room. Let's say you're looking for a conference room of a certain size. You can go to go.lbl.gov/cr, sort the rooms by capacity. Let's see you decided to use 50 auditorium. You can go there. You can see what's coming up on the calendar. You can also add that calendar to your list. If there's any instructions or anything, they're also right on that page. Once you've added that calendar to your list, you create a calendar invite, click rooms. I usually like to start with the building, 50, and then you can see the auditorium comes right up. If it's available, if not, it'll have a strike through it. And also if a room is private, it'll have a line through it and you'll need to request access or for the calendar owner to make the reservation for you. Once you have your reservation, you have your date, you've reserved the room, you want to request the right support that you need. That could include facilities, conference services, site access, or us, IT audio visual. Conference Services actually has a really good resource on their website where they have defined the hosted event life cycle. So it follows this training curriculum in 4 steps. The first thing you want to do are your pre-event activities, consult with Conference Services, the division, with DOE approval in step 2, vendor sourcing, and all your finalization. You have the event in step 3, and then you do your post-event activities in step 4. So they also have it separated into on-site and off-site. Although we only support on-site, Conference Services has a really good resource to help you understand what are the things you might need to consider if you're hosting an off-site event. So I think right here it would be important to define what we do as IT audiovisual. We help you host hybrid events by providing the IT audiovisual infrastructure. So we can support events on-site at the lab. We can't support off-site because our team is small and we just do not have the staff or the bandwidth to be able to go to any event, anywhere, at any hotel across the world that lab staff want to have an event. But if it's on-site, we can help you. We will attend your practice session with your co-hosts or presenters, make sure everything's working properly. We'll provide Zoom room training and documentation if there's any questions about how things work. We'll also show up a little bit early, the day of the event, and stay for the first 15 or 30 minutes just to make sure you're on to a good start. In order to request our services, you would go to go.lbl.gov/events. There's also a link on zoom.lbl.gov under services. This is our page. It has our cost, what we do, our terms, benefits, and you would just hit the button to fill out the AV request form, which creates an Ask Us ticket. It assigns it to our group, and then we'll contact you about setting up any planning consultation, and then the practice session. So recapping module 1, what type of event are you going to have? What space are you going to have it at? And what support might you need? We're going fast, okay? So I'm going to go right into it, and we'll answer questions at the end, or feel free to put them in the chat. At module 2, you have everything reserved. You know the support that you need, but now it's time to get ready. I have to say, this is the part where most people want to skip. They just want to kind of schedule everything and then show up on the day of, and they'll say to us, can you come at 7 a.m. just to make sure we're all set? And the answer is, let's meet the day before or 2 days before to make sure that we're uncovering anything that might happen so that you're ready and we're not scrambling on the morning of the event. The practice session is critical. First, you create a run of show document. And we have this template that we will share with you in a resource document at the end of the slideshow. We'll also share the slides so that you can just take this template and fill it in. This is one that we did during some lab-wide events with the directorate. It's important, if you have a bunch of different roles and things going on, that you assign roles to people. I can't sit here and do my talk and do the camera and monitor the audio and respond to people in chat. I need help. And it might require one person, or it might require 5. It just depends on the scope of your event. It also allows time for team building, for people to get comfortable, press the buttons, share their screen, hear things, test the room, get the nerves out, and just feel good that they know what's coming next and that they're able to move forward comfortably. And then there's the room. Although it has the same user interface with Zoom rooms across different rooms, some of them have multiple displays, some of them have multiple cameras. You might have to set a preset that's exactly to the spot where you want it, just making sure that whatever's going on within the room will work the way you need it to for that day. So let's get into the Zoom room best practices. And I have to assume by this point, Zoom rooms have been here for a while. People understand how to use them, but this training was tailored towards new employees at the lab. We went through the employee roster and invited everyone who started new at the lab since December of 23. So we just want to go over at a high level what the Zoom room best practices are, so that you're empowered to be successful here at the lab. Start the meeting from your host laptop, but don't join the computer audio. If you join the computer audio, you need to leave the computer audio. And the reason is because you need to disconnect the microphone. If you don't do that, it will cause audio echo to the Zoom room. And it's a common misconception that you can just stay connected to the computer audio and just mute, but that doesn't work. You need to leave the computer audio by clicking the up arrow next to mute, as pictured here. Then you join from the Zoom room, unmute the room, start the video, use wireless screen sharing to deliver your content. And if there's a digital whiteboard in the room, you can mark it up. Last but not least, someone please leave the meeting when they're done. Now, here's that room, Sessler. We'll show it in a graphical fashion, the same concept. I walk into the room, the first thing I do is start the meeting from my laptop. So if I've been invited and I'm just a co-host, or if I'm just the only participant that's in the room, join from the laptop first. Don't join the computer audio. We know, though, that if you're having Zoom meetings every day, your computer is joining the computer audio. So sometimes it'll do that automatically, which is fine. But the reason we keep saying that is because you can see the table mic here and the mic that's above the display. That's the audio that you're going to use. So when you get to this screen on your computer, you don't want to select that or hit the X in the upper right-hand corner. And if it automatically did that, it only takes 2 seconds to just click the up arrow and leave computer audio. So then you join from the Zoom room. And if you follow the instruction that we gave earlier in Google Calendar and you added the room, when you arrive, it'll be right there on the meeting list, and you'll just have to hit start on the pad. From there, you unmute, start the room video, you're good to go. Wireless screen sharing. In this particular room, When you share a screen from your laptop, it comes up on the projector screen in the middle and on the touch display over to the left. And then you'll always see the gallery view on the display on your right. You don't want to share your desktop though. You'll open the presentation, PowerPoint, Google Slide, whatever it is, and just share from that second row so that you're isolating the application that you want to share. If there's a digital whiteboard, anything that's been shared could be marked up, or you can create a blank canvas, uh, 12 blank canvases within a single session, and then you can automatically share all of them with all the participants in the meeting with a couple of clicks without typing each person's name or email address. It's pretty cool. From there, someone needs to leave the meeting. We found what happens is people are having meetings in conference rooms at the lab, and then when they're done, they just get up and leave. And I'm usually the one that wakes up in the morning and sees rooms that have been left in the meeting all night from the previous day. So either the host should end the meeting on their laptop, or if the host is not present, someone just click leave meeting. And that way we're not wasting our resources. In the interest of time, I'm going to jump subjects into managing presentation content, right? Now, it can be really hard when you're dealing with a lot of presenters to get everyone to give you their slides in advance. We know that. But you have to do the best you can. Gather the slides in advance. Give them a deadline. Let them know we need your slides. We have to be able to test at our practice session. We can't have people making changes to slides and updating and hiding and revealing and changing artwork and color and everything like 2 minutes before we start on the big projector screen while everyone is watching. So it really helps to just give everyone a deadline of when we need their slides. A stopwatch or timer is a really popular question that we get, and features within the Zoom workplace application that allow you to do that. But the tried and true method is just to use your phone. Set a timer there, put it slightly off camera, and you can refer to it and make sure that you're staying on point. A backup plan is necessary. Let's say Dr. Witherware is presenting there and something happens to that laptop that's in front of him. Well, we wouldn't want that. Obviously, we would have IT check that laptop at the practice session beforehand. But if it did, we would make sure that there was another laptop in the room or a virtual participant who was a co-host who could quickly share the slide, had access to the deck so that there's no last minute trouble. And if it is, it only lasts for a short time and we can recover and keep going. Now, this is the part where I want to talk about some of the new features in the Zoom Workplace application. We know that Zoom has become very popular and they keep adding features and updating it, and there's a lot in there. Zoom has Show Me videos, which we'll provide a link to in the resources document for a lot of different topics. So this is not intended to show every single thing that Zoom can do, but just some of the highlights of some of the new stuff. Starting with the updated user interface. You probably noticed that it looks a little different. The view and layout options have been updated. There's a meeting duration that just happens automatically. You can set how many minutes are left according to how long the meeting's been scheduled. And they changed the security button down here. They changed it to host tools, but it still does all the same stuff. A lot of questions about the AI companion, and we'll touch on that in a little bit too. So let's see, in order to do that, I'm going to do something I told you not to do, which is share my desktop. And in my desktop, you can see the user interface of the Zoom application. What I like about it is that right within the home screen, they have this little down arrow. So if you're an admin at the lab who has delegate access to other people's calendars, you can see your meetings and separate it from their meetings. And you can also jump straight to the managed privileges, where if you click that button, it takes you to zoom.lbl.gov, right to the place where you would delegate access to someone. So the way that works is a lot of times people have calendar access for their boss or the person that they schedule meetings for, but they also need Zoom scheduling privileges so that the calendar invite and the Zoom meeting is hosted by the other person. And so this is a shortcut where you would get to that function. And again, lots of stuff in here, but the other thing I wanted to point out is that they put a shortcut to the recordings right here, which is pretty cool because people often ask, how do I find my recordings? So there's other tabs up here, your meetings, workspaces, etc. But I want to go straight into this, where we talked about some of the things that have changed in the UI. Over here in the view option, it got moved. Previously, it was right within your video square right here, but now it's up here on the right, upper right corner. They have, speaker gallery, multi-speaker. There's also something called focus mode, which will just hone in on co-hosts and hosts, which is very useful. And then there's a new feature to set custom wallpaper, which is cool. A virtual background is one thing, but wallpaper has now been added. So then we talked about this meeting time remaining, 38 minutes. We're going to go faster than that. And then if I switch it to meeting duration, you can see that switch to 50 minutes. But what I want to show you is this timer app. Built into Zoom now, you can start a timer. And let's see, these are some default minutes. That's just obviously put me at 1 minute. But if I want to go here and just select 15 minutes, then in order for you to see this, I'll turn on my other video and I will spotlight the other version of myself and add a spotlight, right? So now you see me twice, plus my desktop share. And if I start the timer, then you can see it right here on this camera only. So that's a useful tool that, you used to have to send an AI bot there or have a different participant or look off screen at a phone, but now you can do it right here in Zoom. So that's pretty cool. In order to get rid of it, you just hit cancel. And I'll remove the spotlight of my other self. And then I'll turn off my laptop video. And let's see. The host tools, which was previously the security button, allows you to disable all of the participant activities. If you notice in this Zoom meeting right now, you can't see anyone else. You can't share your screen, unmute, start your video, share any whiteboards. You can't do anything to distract me or mess me up. But it just goes to show how much control you now have over Zoom meetings as a host. Those are the top things that a quote unquote Zoom bomber would do, right? Show something on video, say something inappropriate, share something that wasn't supposed to be shared, or otherwise create a distraction. So you can remove people, but word of warning, if you remove someone and it was an accident, you cannot bring them back that same day. And so what we recommend is if you do have someone that's creating a disturbance, turn on your waiting room and then send that person to the waiting room. And then in the chat, you can chat the participants who are in the waiting room and say to them, who are you and why? And if you don't like the answer that they're giving, or if they don't respond, then remove them. Okay. Anything I missed on that? Meeting reactions are there, which, reactions have always been there, but now it recognizes hand gestures. That's not going to work on this camera, but once you rolled your hand up, you'll see the little thing load, and then you can, it recognizes your actual gestures. So that's pretty cool. Okay, moving on. I'm going to go back to this, and let's talk about recapping module 2. You got familiar with the technology, you created a run of show, you assigned roles, you held a practice session, you let your team get cozy, everybody had a chance to test things out, you went to the room, you tested everything there, you familiarized yourself with a few tricks and tips and tools in the Zoom Workplace application. You're ready to go. Now it's time for the day of your event. You're going to use the tools that you've developed in the first 2 modules to pull it off and be successful. You can do it. On the day of the event, hopefully you will not have me up at the front saying anything on the microphone. Michael Brandt was very patient. We appreciate that. Things happen. It helps to arrive early. Do your tech check. Review all the functionalities. Test all your presentation content. Hopefully you have all your slides. If you have employed any support teams, create a Google chat space with them so that you can communicate offline. Most of the time, you're communicating with participants in the Zoom chat. So with your team, you want to talk to them offline, and Google Chat works really well for that. And if we know about your event and we have a support request and we've attended your practice session and been involved with you from the beginning of the process, yes, we will join at the beginning and make sure you're off to a smooth start. Managing the event as you go along is really important because it helps to kind of have a huddle and review, okay, your role is this, my role is that, the timing is XYZ. So game plan on the day of. Go over a short version of your practice session. Review what tasks need to be completed, what links need to get dropped in the chat, anything that is coming around the corner to make sure that everyone is aware. And if there's any certain speaker notes or remarks, sometimes you need to let the opening speaker go through their remarks on the day of, just so that they feel comfortable. And that's okay. Compiling resource links, which I've said it a couple times. We also have a resource links document here with all of the things that I've been talking about, which we'll share with you afterwards. And a day of event contact list, which Google Chat at that point. You don't want to do text messaging or try to call people and have to reach out to each person individually on your team. You want to be able to reach everyone with one message. And so Google Chat spaces are a highly effective way to do that. You can also add external collaborators to those Google Chat spaces if they're with DOE or outside the lab. For Zoom room housekeeping, and we touched on this just a little bit earlier, but this gentleman is there to take care of the building, not clean up people's lunches from conference room tables. We want to make sure that someone ends the meeting on the host laptop or clicks leave meeting on the host controller, considering the next group that's hosting an event. Power down the displays, turn off the lights. Just do your best to try to return the room back to its original state so we make sure that we're taking care of the network of conference rooms that we've built at the lab, which are really nice. We have some nice rooms. This is Sessler, everybody's favorite room. Probably the most questions I've ever received about any single conference room in the entire 5 years I've been at the lab has been about this room, Sessler. It works. It's got all the displays. It's got dual cameras. It's got the digital whiteboard. It has everything. 4K projector. This one is in 978 off-site at J-Bay in Emeryville. We like this room because it's a multi-purpose room where they can close the divider in the middle of the room. So you still see the content on the two front displays. It mirrors on this back display. After the in-person breakouts are over, they raise up the divider and everyone can continue on one accord. This is just a reverse angle of that same room. Really nice room. This is one of the conference rooms in Building 90. And you can see the standard is the content is down the center, the gallery is off to the side. If it's a really long room, we provide an extra display on the back wall. But typically, everyone is looking in the same direction. We try to avoid the tennis match experience of conference rooms, looking back and forth at screens that are on opposite ends of the wall. One of the most popular conference rooms at the lab, 91310. And this is one where, I mentioned that you may have to request access or request the room owner to make that reservation for you because it's private. So as a host, you might have two calendar invites. One is just for the room for that time block. And the other one is where you would add the Zoom link and invite all the participants, et cetera. And then this is also a room where you would go to the go.lbl.gov CR page and there's a user manual because there's a little tablet right here on the front. But all that does is just power up the projector and then you come over to the tablet over here and then you start. So it's a little nuance, but it basically is the same user interface. And as long as you know how to start, once you're on, you're good to go. So we documented all that. This is the director's conference room. We used it as a standard. This is the first multi-screen, multi-camera, touch display Zoom room that we built at the lab. And then we used this model to roll out to all the other buildings and rooms across the lab. And then the largest room that was ever built without an outside integrator. This is in building 76, 235, the facilities room. It's got 4 screens, um, camera here, camera there. It's got a couple of speakers there with a mixing board with microphones because they do in-room um, retirement parties and birthday parties, and they used to do Zumba and martial arts club and all this great stuff. So the room is so big, it's almost as big as a basketball gym. We've really built that room out with some nice AV tech. Module 3 recap. Show up early, do your tech check, utilize your run of show, and make sure you take care of our facilities. Module 4 is purposely short because I'm timing my talk. It's 1:31, and we're going to save some time for questions and let everyone go a little bit early. After the meeting is over, you want to gather your post-event data so that you can reach out to your attendees. Thank you for joining. Here's a short questionnaire. What would you like to see differently? Whatever the case might be. Identify where you did well, where you didn't do so well, where you could improve, and get better as time goes on. But if you don't take time to sit down and look at those factors, then you're winging it every time. And that's what we want to avoid. So going back to the preparation, what were the goals? What were the objectives? Were they met? Did we choose the right room? Did people feel comfortable there? Could everyone see and hear everything? Was the content delivered properly to in-person and remote participants? And then finally, any logistics. Were the sandwiches good? Was the pizza cold? Did the coffee arrive on time? Did the shuttle, was it easy for people to go where they needed to go? Did our high-level guests have reserved parking spaces? Did anyone get stuck at the gate and not able to get a badge and come on site? Any challenges like that arose, you review them, and that way, you can address them and be ready next time. And then the overall success. What is it that we were trying to accomplish, and did we do it? Attendee reports are something that are enabled on the user level. Zoom.lbl.gov, my account, reports, under usage. For any of the meetings that you host, you can download the attendee report. It used to be something that you had to come to us for. Now it's enabled on your end, which is really important, just so that you can. I'm going to do it to see how many of you showed up versus who I invited, who those people were, and how long they stayed on the meeting, and maybe send a thank you email for taking a half hour, 40 minutes out of your Monday to listen to me. We appreciate it. Module 4 recap. Review your goals and objectives, gather your reports, maybe create a survey, reach out to people after the fact, analyze whether you were successful and by what metrics are you using to determine that, and review your lessons learned. From there, we'll go into the Q&A section. I see a few questions coming up here in the chat. Let's see what we got. Oh, the Otter pilot. Yes, this is a popular question. So Otter AI is a third-party bot that people send to meetings to take notes on their behalf when they can't make it. It's something that is configured on the Otter site. It's something that users establish their own account. It doesn't replace anything in Zoom, but it's an add-on. And it happens where it joins the meeting and then it sends everyone a message saying, hey, I'm Otter AI. And that everyone can then, it can download the notes after the fact. Let's see. Someone wants to know how come the gesture doesn't work for everyone, the gestures. I found that sometimes you have to click the gesture with the check mark, take it away, and then click it again. And then if your computer is optimized for it, it will work. Yes, this meeting will be recorded. Let's see. So any suggestion to get leaders more comfortable using AI note-taking? I think I talked about the AI companion, but I didn't exactly elaborate on it. So let's talk about that for a minute. AI companion is built into Zoom now. If you just click AI companion, it allows you to ask questions that have happened throughout the meeting or press the catch me up button. But if you click start summary, then it will summarize everything that's been discussed throughout the meeting and send that summary to the host. A word of warning though, it's not always accurate and it doesn't always accurately identify who's talking. So I would hesitate to just copy and paste that summary to send to anyone. Take a look at it, read it, double check it, really it's there just to give you a high level summary so that you can kind of remember what the key points were. But I wouldn't take it as a literal thing because it's not always completely accurate. Let's see. Someone wants to know what's my opinion on having in person attendees be on Zoom on their personal laptops as well. I think that it's okay because what you're doing is, like, for example, I turned on my video earlier that's just on my laptop, and you're basically just adding yourself to the gallery view. So even though you're using the room camera, adding yourself to the gallery view, I think is okay. So that, a lot of times that room camera is not just focused on me like it is now, but it's showing the entire room. So that when you're speaking, you're actually putting your face in the gallery. I think that's actually a really good idea. Hold on one sec. I'll get rid of that. And privacy concerns with AI summary, I'm not touching that. We have an IT policy team that is working on developing what our policies are around the use of AI in the lab as a whole. And so that's a story that is not completely been written, nor is it a topic I want to take on off the top of my head. I see a message about recurring meetings. I think that's something we should probably address offline, which we're happy to do that. Let's see. Nathan asks a question about focus mode, which is a really good. Thank you for that reminder. So it used to be that we were having a lot of webinars, but a webinar is a separate license that IT has to give you temporarily and then teach you how to do the webinar and then kind of walk you through it as in the hybrid events and then take that license away. But everyone at the lab is already provisioned with a Zoom license for 300 participants. So if you're having 300 participants or less, you don't necessarily need a webinar. You can do what we're doing now, which is lock down the Zoom meeting to limit participant activities, and then you can spotlight, right? But now, focus mode, what it does is if you have co-hosts, like let's say 5 different co-hosts who are all speaking, you turn on focus mode and it will just isolate those people. So right now, you have me in speaker view because I spotlighted, but you can go to gallery and look at the gallery. There's nothing to see there, but you can do that. Whereas in focus mode, you're locked to only the people that we want you to see on video. And so it basically simulates a webinar. And that's what we recommend doing because you already have a license for it. Let's see. We have someone that's saying, I find that remote participants sometimes can't hear the on-site participants clearly in hybrid meetings. This is worse for people with hearing problems. Are there audio settings that we can tweak during meetings to see if they help? Or is there anything else we can do? Um, yeah, good question. Common question. I think that a lot of times when we hear that remote participants are having trouble hearing the room, the issue is on the remote participant end, not with the room itself. So the first thing that you want to do is just check the room controller, the iPad or tablet, to make sure that the volume is up and that it's leaving the room. You can go hit the gear on an Zoom Room tablet and do the test audio settings. It'll have you test speaker, test microphone. It'll play a tone back to you. And once you're confident that the audio is leaving the room at a good volume, well, then the issue has to be with the far end caller. And I think sometimes people don't realize that they can turn up their computer or turn up their speaker in the Zoom client. There's also the phenomenon of people who put their head down in rooms or speak away from the microphone. You can see that I get really good audio from this microphone, but if I start talking like this, there's obviously a loss. You can still hear me, but not as well. And so proximity matters. Now, if you're in a small huddle room that has an appliance, it's supposed to capture the audio of the whole room. If you have a specific table microphone, but people are sitting really far away from it, or if you have people who are doing this, and they're speaking away from their microphone, well, then that will cause some loss. So I think there's a number of factors that go into that, but settings to tweak would be making sure that the audio is leaving the room and then making sure that the far end caller, you never know what they're using. It could be headphones, it could be their computer audio, they could be connected to speakers. There's so many different iterations that it helps to make sure that the far end caller settings are legit, not automatically assuming that it's the room. I hope that helps, Robert. Let's see. I think that's all of the questions that I see here. I will refer to this QR code, which you can scan to get. I actually created a document that has the chapters broken down of the module with short videos to some of that stuff. And then here's the resources page with the go.lbl.gov/cr, which is really important to be able to research your conference rooms, links to each one of the support teams that we mentioned, the run of show template, also the Zoom Room best practices, a little tutorial on getting started with reports, and then the show me videos that I mentioned, which I really like because they're videos that are 1 minute long per subject. We're all busy. We don't have time to look at 10, 15, 20-minute videos in order to get an answer. Usually we just need one answer to one question right now. And so the show me videos are really useful because it breaks it down per subject to 1 minute videos. And that is what I have. Let's see. Did I miss any other questions? DC is shaking his head no. So I think we did good. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking your time out of your day to learn a little bit about how to host hybrid events at the lab. The runaround hasn't happened yet, so I'll have my 24 shirt for the LBNL runaround coming up later in October. And hopefully you all have a good day, and we will see you either at the lab or in Zoom land. Thank you. Take care.